federal crimes do you think America actually has? 1,500? 5,000? 100,000? What if I told you no one actually knows? Hooray! Yeah. But the Department of Justice actually tried to count the number of federal laws and had to stop because it was just too hard. This means that there's no textbook that summarizes the basis for each crime, what the government has to prove in court, or the potential penalty for each of these crimes. In fact, the United States leads the world in number of people incarcerated. China is 4 times bigger, but it has only 1.6 million people in prison, while the United States has 2.3 million people behind bars. We're number 1! At the founding of this country, the Constitution simply enumerated 3 federal crimes: piracy, counterfeiting, and of course, treason. But as the decades went by, Congress delegated its authority to make laws to federal agencies, who went to work writing regulations. Many of these regulations were passed for good reasons, but those reasons either no longer exist or they've simply been lost to time. So let's take some time out to look at 3 categories of the weirdest federal laws that still exist. Sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula. So let's begin our exploration of some of the craziest laws that still exist in this country with the post office. The post office is just about as old as the country itself, and for most of America's existence, few crimes were taken more seriously than screwing with the mail. The post office's unofficial motto swells with self-importance. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. And in the 1800s, you could actually be hanged for stealing the mail. And that's all well and good to punish people who misuse the mail, but because we live in a nanny state where Uncle Sam is always trying to tell you what to do, they've trampled on our freedoms to be able to send people via the mail. Unbelievable. You might think that no one would ever do this, but there wasn't actually a law prohibited people shipping for the first 140 years of the post office. And back in the day, lots of people used the mail service creatively. For example, Henry Brown was an enslaved man from Virginia who worked with abolitionists in Pennsylvania to mail himself out of slavery in 1849. Brown burned his hand to get out of work, then packed himself in a shipping crate. The journey took 27 hours and cost $87, about $2,500 in today's money. He stayed free and became a well-known speaker, magician, and performer. And it worked because back then it was legal to ship people. In fact, it was legal to ship babies and children between 1913 and 1920. The introduction of the parcel post in 1913 gave parents exciting new options in child transportation. Parcel post allowed people to ship heavy objects for a reduced rate, and since parcel post was a lot cheaper than a train ticket, parents often opted to stick an address on their kids and send them with the postman. For example, a family in Batavia, Ohio sent their son to grandma's house less than 1 mile away for just 15 cents. But don't worry, they insured him for $50. I mean, that's just good financial planning. And in 1914, an Idaho family shipped their 5-year-old daughter to their grandparents' house 73 miles away. She was sent through a train's mail compartment with 53 cents of stamps attached to her jacket. Now sure, this seems like child abuse, but the reason postal workers were willing to transport children by mail was actually fairly touching. Families knew their postal carriers well and trusted them to safely deliver the children. So I guess Kevin Costner was right all along. And Congress let this slide until June of 1920 when it passed a law that made it a federal crime to mail humans, regardless of the weight. Now that doesn't mean that people have stopped trying to ship themselves through the mail. In 2003, a man named Charles McKinley mailed himself from New York to Texas in a box. He was convicted of a misdemeanor stowaway charge in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2199. But the heavy hand of tyranny strikes once again because living human beings is not the only thing that you can't send via the post office. No, you actually can't send miniature spoons. Why? Well, the USPS continues to add to the list of things you cannot mail, which not surprisingly prohibits sending of anything by mail that is determined to be drug paraphernalia. But that includes things such as miniature spoons with level capacities of less than 1/10 of a cubic centimeter. Turns out that tiny spoons are great for snorting cocaine. Yeah, so in 1979, Congress heard testimony from anti-drug lobbyists who talked about the need to get McDonald's to stop using their very popular little coffee stirring spoons. These little spoons were beloved by coffee drinkers and drug dealers alike.
I'm loving it.
Dealers used to buy them in bundles. And even today, these spoons are sought after. You can get them on eBay, but if they're sent through the mail, you have probably just committed a federal crime. And that takes us to the most vile of all post office related crimes. And that is that you can't dress up like a postal carrier. Yes, there are hundreds of crimes related to the US Postal Service, but the worst is of course wearing a postal carrier uniform, which can get you up to 6 months in prison under 18 USC 1730. 18 USC 1730 says whoever, not being connected with the letter carrier branch of the Postal Service, wears the uniform or badge, which may be prescribed by the Postal Service to be worn by the letter carriers, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 6 months or both. Eventually, Congress passed a law allowing actors to wear USPS uniforms, but only under the condition that the production portray the postal carrier in a positive light. So obviously, like this. Now, if this strikes you as super hot, but also unconstitutional, you're absolutely right. The US once made it illegal for actors to wear military uniforms unless the production showed the military in a positive manner. However, the law was struck down by the Supreme Court in 1970, since allowing actors to wear uniforms only if their role did not discredit the military was a violation of the actor's First Amendment right to free speech. And even though that law was struck down, it took Congress 21 more years to remove the same language from the Postal Worker Statute. The law now reads, "The provisions of the preceding paragraph shall not apply to an actor or actress in a theatrical, television, or motion picture production who wears the uniform or badge of the letter carrier branch of the Postal Service while portraying the member of that service." Which of course is how we got this guy.
I'll tell you a little secret about zip codes. They're meaningless.
Newman. But let's talk about the truth and consequences in food regulation, because often lawyers are literally paid to engage in food fights. People can be convicted of many kinds of food crime because the US regulates food, cosmetics, and drugs pretty heavily. But understanding which agencies regulate food is very, very complicated, even for lawyers. So let's talk about the jurisdictional battles of the food comps. There are two federal agencies that regulate food. There's the Food and Drug Administration and the US Department of Agriculture. The FDA is responsible for regulating labels on all processed foods created and sold in the US. The USDA oversees mostly meat, poultry, and eggs. The FDA regulates about 75% of America's food supply, and the USDA has the rest. And the division between the two agencies makes for some delicious jurisdictional battles. Take eggs. Whole eggs, shells and all, are the responsibility of the FDA, but liquid eggs are regulated by the USDA. This might seem strange since an egg is composed of a shell and some liquid. Why divide them? But this complicated division exists throughout the food regulation regime. For example, the FDA has jurisdiction over non-domesticated poultry like wild turkeys, ducks, and geese, whereas the USDA regulates domesticated poultry like turkey, chickens, and yes, domestic geese and ducks. But things get even more complicated when we talk about sandwiches. Bread is a bakery product that is regulated by the FDA, but meat like ham or turkey or beef is regulated by the USDA. So who regulates a simple turkey sandwich? Well, this is where things get really interesting, and by interesting, I mean complicated. The FDA regulates a sandwich with 2 slices of bread. This is because the FDA regulates bread. But take away 1 slice of bread and make it an open-faced sandwich, and the USDA steps in since the ratio of meat to bread and other ingredients is more than half. And this is no laughing matter. The food cops are deadly serious about it. Here's a notice from the USDA about inspection of closed-faced sandwiches that are on their way to Canada. And the agency knows that places like White Castle or KFC might shove meat between 2 biscuits or pancakes, or even chicken between 2 slices of chicken, so they have that covered as well. But perhaps the biggest food-related tragedy in all of law is that you can't make food with love. That's right, companies that get a little too cheeky with the way that they list ingredients on their food could be looking at a prison sentence. Check out this mean letter from the FDA to the Nashoba Brooks Bakery, which had the audacity to include love as an ingredient in its bread. Your Nashoba granola and whole wheat bread, wholesale and retail products, are misbranded within the meaning of Section 403 of the Act. For example, your Nashoba granola label lists ingredient love. Ingredients required to be declared on the label or labeling of food must be listed by their common or usual name. Love is not a common or usual name of an ingredient and is considered to be intervening material because it is not part of the common or usual name of the ingredient. That's right, Nashoba, the government has questions. Just what is this love ingredient? How much love is in a pound of granola? Is love measured in grams, ounces, or pounds? What kind of hippie bread and granola are you cooking up over there in Massachusetts? Thankfully for Nashoba, the FDA encourages self-correction of alleged violations of the FDCA over criminal prosecution, and generally, if a violation is suspected, the FDA will provide the alleged offender with the opportunity to correct unlawful conduct before taking further action, and to remove all love from your products. However, the government regulators could opt for prison time if you demand to add love to your food. A first offense conviction of a mislabeled consumer product might carry a maximum sentence of 1 year in federal prison or a $1,000 fine, and the text of the statute allows the FDA to charge both. Hopefully the government recognizes that there's a difference between selling eggs with the incorrect date for the purpose of passing off old eggs as fresh and labeling your granola as containing lots and lots of love. Obviously, the love is much, much worse. But don't worry, as long as they don't sell and label them, grandma can still bake your cookies with as much love as she wants. From prison. All right, we've talked about the post office, we've talked about eliminating the scourge that is the love that is pervasive in all of our foods, and let's talk about the final category of crazy federal laws, that is weather laws. And if you've enjoyed this video so far, please give it a like so we can make sure that more people know about all the crazy laws that still exist in this country. But it's also important that you know not to falsify a weather report. It's actually a violation of federal law to falsify a National Weather Service forecast and pass it off as official. Not that any high-ranking government official has ever falsified a weather report. In fact, if one were crazy enough to take a Sharpie and falsify a national weather report, you could actually get 90 days in jail for breaking this law. 18 USC 2074 reads, "Whoever knowingly issues or publishes any counterfeit weather forecast or warning of weather conditions falsely representing such forecast, or warning to have been issued or published by the Weather Bureau, United States Signal Service, or other branch of the government service, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 90 days or both." This might seem like a trivial thing, however, if an official violates this law, it's a serious matter. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service, the NWS, is the government agency that provides weather forecasts and reports across this country. And giving out false information can interfere with the farming and shipping industries, and could even cause people to put themselves in harm's way. And for a practical application of this law that probably doesn't get a whole lot of use, we need look no further than former President Trump, who caused a controversy by insisting that Hurricane Dorian was tracking towards Alabama when it was not. Trump made this claim via tweet. What, you thought I was going to say that he made it in a well-rehearsed speech? No, he made it in a tweet. But the National Hurricane Center did not at any point include Alabama in its forecast for where Dorian would make landfall. The NWS Birmingham quickly corrected the president, assuring people that they didn't need to evacuate. But contradicting the president was a big no-no during the Trump era. Rule number 1 was never contradict the president. And of course, an angry President Trump dug in and defended himself by saying that days earlier, the path of the hurricane included Alabama and produced a chart with a Sharpie drawing. The National Weather Service was under pressure not to contradict President Trump, so it ended up putting up false information to cover the president. But the law wasn't actually tailor-made to former President Trump. Back when meteorology was still a new science, amateurs were selling weather forecasts all the time.
It's 68 degrees, and there's a 30% chance that it's already raining.
This was problematic, especially when they asserted that the information was coming from the US government. So the government's major concern was that people would hold the government accountable for bogus reports. Therefore, they passed laws making it illegal to falsify a government weather report. But at an even more fundamental level, you actually can't change the weather itself without permission. For example, in 15 USC 330, it actually prohibits anyone from modifying the weather. Quote, "No person may engage or attempt to engage in any weather modification activities in the United States unless he submits to the Secretary of Commerce such reports with respect thereto in such form and containing such information as the Secretary by rule prescribe." Section 330 gives the Secretary of Commerce the power to subpoena anyone caught modifying the weather without proper notification. If a person defies the Secretary of Commerce subpoena, the court may find that person in contempt and jail them. And contrary to popular belief, this law was not invented to fight the My Little Ponies. Rather, the genesis of this law is actually a process called cloud seeding that was started in the 1940s. It involves sending small aircraft into the clouds to effectively modify them and inserting chemicals to enhance precipitation, dissipate fog, modify hurricanes, and decrease lightning and hail in thunderstorms. But cloud seeding is a pretty controversial act, and it's officially banned in warfare. This is partially because the US used it in Vietnam to extend the monsoon season, which stopped the North Vietnamese from moving troops and materials southward. So yes, the weather can be altered, but you can only do it with government permission. And that's not surprising because you need government permission for a whole bunch of stuff, and we'll go into more detail about that soon. And I explained one more crazy federal law over at Nebula. In fact, I posted a whole extended version of this video over there. Did you know that you have to feed your pigs hot garbage? Almost all of my videos have an ad-free extended version on Nebula, and now you can get a huge discount. Because sometimes talking about hot garbage is too hot for YouTube, which is why my creator friends and I teamed up to build our own platform where creators don't need to worry about demonetization or the dreaded algorithm. It's called Nebula, and we're thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream. Because Nebula is a place where creators can do what they do best: create. It's a place where we can both house our content ad-free and also experiment with original content and new series that probably wouldn't work on YouTube. And not only are my Nebula versions ad-free and extended, but they're also released early before the YouTube version. Nebula features a lot of YouTube's top educational-ish creators like Extra Credits, Real Engineering, and Wendover Productions. And we also get to collaborate in ways that probably wouldn't work on YouTube and put out amazing original content like Half as Interesting's Courtroom Drama, where I play a real-life fake lawyer. So what does this have to do with CuriosityStream? Well, as the go-to source for the best documentaries on the planet, like Peter Sagal's History spelled with a $sign, they love educational creators. And we worked out a deal where if you sign up for CuriosityStream with a link in the description, you'll also get a Nebula subscription for free. And to be clear, that Nebula subscription is not a trial. It's free for as long as you're a CuriosityStream member. And right now, CuriosityStream is offering 26% off of their annual plans. That's less than $15 a year for both CuriosityStream and Nebula. So if you click the link in the description, you'll get both CuriosityStream and Nebula for 26% off. Or you can go to curiositystream.com/Legaleagle. It's a great way to support this channel and educational content directly for under $15 a year. That's less than the cost of Legaleagle's Patreon. So just click on the link in the description to get CuriosityStream and Nebula together. Plus, clicking on that link really helps out this channel. Now, leave your objections in the comments and check out this playlist over here with all of my other videos about crazy laws and legal misunderstandings. So click on this playlist, or I'll see you in court.